What kind of king rules not with wisdom, not with courage, but with obsession, corruption, and scandalous desire? The story of Spain's Ferdinand VII is one of the darkest in Europe's history. A monarch so despised, so corrupt, that he became known not as a father of his nation, but as its executioner. Spain, early 19th century. Europe was shaken by revolutions and wars. Monarchs were overthrown, empires toppled, and yet in Madrid, one king clung desperately to power, Ferdinand VII of Spain, a man whose reign was drenched not only in blood, but in humiliation, lust, and betrayal. Ferdinand was born in 1784 into a court already rotten, officially the son of King Charles IV and Queen Maria Luisa. Whispers spread that his true father was Manuel de Godoy, the Queen's lover and the most powerful man in Spain. From his very birth, scandal clouded his name. As a child, he was isolated, suspicious, and bitter. Unlike other princes who formed friendships or studied diligently, Ferdinand kept to himself, sulking in corners of the palace. Servants described him as quick to anger, prone to violent outbursts over small slights. He mocked tutors, ignored lessons, and spent hours daydreaming of revenge against those who mocked his rumored illegitimacy. By adolescence, darker traits emerged. Ferdinand was said to take pleasure in cruelty, especially toward animals. Witnesses whispered of dogs beaten, birds mutilated, and stable boys reduced to tears by his outbursts. Rather than cultivating empathy or intellect, he nurtured suspicion and resentment. He saw kindness as weakness, intelligence as a threat, and loyalty as something to be purchased rather than earned. The Spain of Ferdinand's youth was already in decline. Charles IV was a weak king, more interested in hunting than governance. Maria Luisa, his mother, was infamous for her affairs. And Manuel de Godoy, the Queen's favorite, wielded power greater than that of the king himself. The royal palace became a theater of scandal. Courtiers sought favor not through service, but through flattery and intrigue. Decisions were made not in council chambers but in bedrooms. Young Ferdinand grew up in this poisonous environment, learning not the duties of kingship, but the mechanics of betrayal. By the time the French Revolution shook Europe, Ferdinand had already decided he would overthrow his parents and seize the throne. In 1808, he made his move. With Napoleon's armies pressing into Spain, Ferdinand conspired with discontented nobles. He turned public opinion against Godoy, painting himself as the savior of Spain. In the Mutiny of Aranjuez, Charles IV was forced to abdicate. For a few short weeks, Ferdinand was king. Crowds hailed him. Bells rang. Spain believed in renewal. But Napoleon was no fool. He summoned Ferdinand to Bayonne, promising recognition. There, the young usurper was humiliated. His crown was stripped, and he was kept prisoner in France for 6 years. While Spain bled in the Peninsular War, peasants starved, villages burned, guerrillas fought heroically. Ferdinand lived comfortably, writing servile letters to Napoleon. The Spanish people who fought for their independence began to despise the man who would return to rule them. When Napoleon fell in 1814, Ferdinand returned to Madrid. Crowds lined the streets, shouting El Deseado, the desired one. After years of chaos, famine, and war, they longed for a savior, but salvation never came. Within weeks, Ferdinand abolished the Constitution of 1812. He restored absolute monarchy, crushed reform, and reopened the Inquisition. Writers, soldiers, priests who opposed him were arrested, tortured, executed. The prisons filled again. The gallows rose once more. The man hailed as the desired one soon became Rey Felón, the Felon King. Behind closed doors, the palace was a grotesque stage. Ferdinand feasted like a glutton, while peasants starved. His tables groaned with meats, sweets, and imported wines. He devoured food with greasy hands, leaving scraps for dogs while children outside gnawed on bark. Courtiers were forced into humiliating spectacles. Some were ordered to crawl across marble floors to kiss his swollen feet. Others were mocked in obscene games, where loyalty was measured by degradation. Ministers bribed their way into office, only to be discarded days later. Even priests bent to his will, offering blessings over debauchery. One foreign ambassador wrote, "Madrid has become a grotesque parody of monarchy.
where priests bless obscenities and nobles bow to a clown in a crown. Maria Antonia of Naples fought him with sarcasm and hatred, but died young, whispers saying his cruelty crushed her spirit. Isabel of Braganza perished in childbirth, neglected and unloved. Maria Josepha Amalia of Saxony, a child bride, was so horrified that their marriage remained unconsummated for years. Finally, Maria Cristina endured his grotesque body while secretly plotting for her daughter's survival. Ferdinand's impotence was a scandal across Europe. To prove himself, he forced humiliating tests in his bedchamber, witnessed by doctors and servants. These grotesque rituals shocked ambassadors, who sent reports home dripping with disgust. While Ferdinand indulged, Spain fell apart. The treasury emptied, corruption spread, and famine stalked the countryside. Mothers left infants at monasteries, unable to feed them. Secret societies like the Freemasons plotted rebellion in smoky taverns. Meanwhile, the empire disintegrated. Venezuela, Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, all declared independence. Ferdinand's paranoia led him to execute loyal generals and replace them with sycophants. By the time his reign ended, Spain's vast empire was reduced to fragments. The people mocked him in street songs. The pig in the palace, the king of hunger, the clown in the crown. Caricatures depicted him as a bloated animal chained to Godoy's ghost. Hatred of the king united liberals and conservatives alike. By the late 1820s, Ferdinand's body collapsed under his vices. He became monstrously obese, his legs swollen with gout, his face covered in sores. He stank of rot. He could barely walk, yet demanded parades and ceremonies to display his crumbling power. Ministers lived in terror of his paranoia. Family members feared exile or death. Still, he demanded loyalty, demanded heirs, demanded worship. Diplomats described him as half-dead, yet still dangerous. Maria Cristina, his final queen, endured the nightmare, but she plotted carefully, forging alliances with liberals and moderates to ensure her daughter Isabella would inherit. As Ferdinand decayed, Spain mocked him more openly. Underground pamphlets depicted him as a bloated pig dragged by chains. Street songs compared him to Caligula. In some villages, people burned his effigy during festivals, calling it the cleansing of Madrid. In September 1833, Ferdinand finally died at the age of 49, looking like an old man of 80. His funeral was lavish, filled with gold and ritual. Priests prayed, nobles bowed, but outside, peasants toasted his death. Taverns erupted in quiet celebration. The Felon King was gone. His death, however, brought no peace. Don Carlos, his brother, refused to accept Isabella's succession. Spain descended into the Carlist Wars, brutal civil conflicts that bled the country for decades. Villages burned, families split, tens of thousands died. Ferdinand's poison lingered in every drop of blood spilled. Across Europe, newspapers mocked him. London called him a clown who wore a crown. Paris sneered, "Spain is free of its pig." Even conservative monarchs sighed with relief at his passing. To his people, he remained a curse. Songs mocked him long after death. Parents told children frightening tales of El Felón. His name became shorthand for corruption and betrayal. History remembers him not as a king, but as El Rey Felón, the Felon King, the most perverted monarch in Spain's history. He betrayed his family, his wives, his allies, and his people. He destroyed reform, lost an empire, and plunged Spain into civil war. His reign offers no lesson in greatness, only in shame, that the greatest danger to a nation may not be the enemy outside its borders, but the corruption festering within its crown. And so Ferdinand VII endures in history, not as the father of Spain, but as its executioner.